And we welcome you back to the show, joined by a very special guest, Saint for Life, Jason Lammers, now the head coach of the Purple Eagles of Niagara. And Jason, thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us on the show here.
Well, it's great to be here, Jack, and appreciate the tag Saint for Life. I, have a picture that I keep in my office that Katie gave to me, and it's a picture of some success that our teams had in Dubuque, and feel very fondly, as my family does, about Dubuque and our time and being a fighting Saint.
I was going to say, you didn't just drag that out of the attic, dust it off, and put it up behind you for the interview today?
Yeah, no, it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and my wife's actually decorated the wall behind me, and being in Dubuque was just a wonderful opportunity for our family. We miss the people, we miss the organization. At the same time, it gave us roots to grow and wings to fly, and here we are in Niagara.
Yeah, I can't take any credit for the decorations behind me. At my home in Virginia, that's all my parents, so I'm not going to be able to take any credit for that. But again, we appreciate you joining the show here today. This is one of our first episodes of this new podcast, something to do and something to give the people hockey content during this big lull, and hopefully a lull that doesn't last much longer.
Sure.
But I guess that's where I'll start with you. And just before we got onto this interview, you said that this isn't very different from what you're usually doing at this point of the season, but the end of the season was definitely different than a lot of people are used to in the way it just abruptly came to an end. When you found out that news, what was that 24-hour period like where you had to convey the message to the team and everything that happened in such a short notice?
Yeah, it was a really, really challenging time, something I've never been through as a coach. We were actually getting on the ice, like literally, getting ready for practice. We were playing Army in the first round of the playoffs. We had done a nice job, our team, earning a bye. And so we faced Army. And what I did is I called the seniors aside and brought them in the room, like our little coach's room, and kind of delivered the news. And we all had a cry about it, and it was so impressive to see what that senior group had done, where they had come from. We had, they had 3 wins as freshmen here, and here we were with 12 wins and really set up to have a great playoff run. And we had lost the year before in the conference finals to go to the NCAA tournament, lost to AIC, who eventually beat St. Cloud, the number 1 team in the country. So they had done a lot of great things and manufactured a lot. Mm-hmm. And so to deliver that news to them was really challenging. And then we let them deliver the news to their teammates, but not fun. And basically, we immediately packed up the bus and drove back to campus, which is about a 6 or 7 hour ride. And as you know, West Point is only about 40 minutes from New York City, so we were real close to the epicenter where this was all going on.
Yeah, I don't want to segue too much, but you mentioned that senior class and that berth in the Atlantic Hockey Championship game. That was the first berth ever for Niagara. Was that something that you conveyed to them, saying just how special that group was to help accomplish that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really easy to see the outcome of that, right? Everybody can see what they did and where they got to, but what they don't see is the behind the scenes, the work they had done as people, the work that they had done as students, the work they had done as players, to get us to an environment and a culture that now has that as our expectation and our shining light at the end of the tunnel, that's where we're now expected to be, and that's what we're expected to do. And it's all because of that senior class and the class before them, and raising the bar on the standard of behavior that's expected to play here and be a student here and be a person here.
Now that it's not as raw, you've had a couple weeks to reflect on it. Removed from the season, how do you evaluate this year as a whole?
Yeah, so we did an exit survey at the end of the year to really get the player perspective, and this year was one of the best surveys that I've ever gotten back. And as a staff, I thought the staff did a really nice job putting it together, and our players had a lot of honest and open dialogue with us. So that part was outstanding. Now we still haven't done our quote unquote exit meetings that they would call in junior hockey. Here we call them moving forward meetings, right? Because everybody's moving up or moving forward or graduating. So we do them a little bit different here. And we haven't done those yet, partly on purpose, but we want to let everything play out. But we're really pleased with how we did. Some quick facts that would be interesting. We gave up 35 less goals. We gave up a significant amount of less shots. We finished 5th in the conference, which hasn't been done here in a long, long time. So that was a big deal. And then on the flip side, we scored 35 less goals. So our main focus right now is trying to figure out a way to create more offense and keep our 35 less goals as well.
I guess in general, your philosophy as a coach, when you're evaluating a season, a player, anything in the evaluation side of things, how much of it is strictly results based, and then how much of it is the actual process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, process is a real buzzword right now, especially in my profession, our profession as coaches and athletics, right? So we really work hard not to be outcome focused. At the same time, that's what we're evaluated on as a team and as a coaching staff and as players. So to evaluate the players just on their outcome and how many goals they scored and how many assists they got and what their save percentage was and how many wins they had, I don't think that's always fair to the player, but we do use that as one of our barometers, plus some other, how'd you do in school? How are you doing as a person? How'd you grow as a player? But we try and use some other metrics and analytics to help them realize that their process was better. Hey, your weight went up, your weight went down. Again, nothing too complicated, but just trying to show them how their process needs to be better, needs to improve, or needs to keep going with it.
I've heard the term from several coaches, process over outcome. I'm assuming that's kind of what you're leaning towards as a coach as well.
Yeah. I think it's really hard. I think guys, junior age kids and college age kids, they all have outcome fever, right? And a lot of that comes from social media. Everybody's neck is sore from reading their phone so much, and bad body posture from trying to read your phone. You're always bent over with your neck down. So it's really challenging to not be outcome fever. So again, we really try and educate them. Here we use a process to evaluate their behavior called E plus R equals O, right? So events are going to happen. Ref's going to make a bad call. What's your response going to be to get to the outcome that we all want? And so we really try and educate the guys on the 6 R's that it takes to respond accordingly to the events that happen in their lives. And no better vehicle than hockey to help display how life happens, but then using the lessons you've learned in hockey to get the outcomes you want in life as a person, as a student, and as a player.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've already talked about this a little bit, but now that the season's over, what's your day-to-day and the staff's day-to-day looking like right now?
Yeah, so right now our staff is every Tuesday we have a phone call. That time varies depending on schedules. And what we do is we catch each other up on the week. Right now we're all reading a John Gordon book with the players. So I have the incoming guys, we're reading Hard Hat. The sophomore group is reading Energy Bus. The junior group is reading Carpenter. And Philip Rhodes, actually, who's a Saint for Life too, is leading our senior group through Legacy, which I know is a big, important book to Coach Oliver. So that's what we're doing. We're also now with 2020, the NHL is producing great content for us that we get to be part of webinars. Thirdly, a lot of us are on phone calls with people and or Zoom calls where we're learning from others. And so that's what Tuesday is all about. And then obviously in our business, we don't have a draft. So it's all about recruiting and recruiting the next crop of players. So we catch each other up on things that we need to know about recruiting wise as well on Tuesday. My process, I really challenge our team and our staff to have a 168 plan, which is basically laying out your week almost hour by hour. So I've tried to go to bed at the same time, which is, fairly challenging when you can stay up and watch Netflix right now. You don't have to get up for work, but I try and get up at 6, use that time to reflect, drink coffee, journal, read, think. 8 o'clock, I start my workout. I'm usually done by 9 or 9:30, make breakfast. And then at 10 o'clock seems to be what the green light turns on, and I kind of disappear from the family. My wife, Michelle, is doing an awesome job doing the heavy lifting with our kids from 10 until, I don't know. So it seems like now you're more accessible. So on the phone a lot till 6 or 7. So that's our day. And then we try and gather as a family for a meal and get the kids to bed.
You mentioned each class is reading a book. As head coach, do you have to read every single book?
You know what? That's one of the things I love to do. I love to read, and I have read all these books. We picked the order on purpose. The staff wanted to Philip Rhodes made a suggestion that we be more engaged and involved with the students. So that's why we had each coach pick a year that they want to work with. And these John Gordon books, I think, are just very simple but elite processes to help you get the outcome you want as a person. And so each class has to read a different book, and some of that's on purpose. Obviously, seniors reading the book Legacy next year will be their last page in their legacy here as a Purple Eagle.
You mentioned books. I'm reading one right now that has to do with the game of golf, but the premise of the book is the mental side of things is way more important at the higher levels than the physical side of things. If you believe that an outcome will happen, even if you're quote unquote not the most talented person, you still have a better chance than if you don't believe. Is that something you preach that you buy into a lot?
Yeah, what book is that, Jack? I need to read that.
It's a golf, a game. I believe the title is, oh, let's see, I might have it over here. No, I don't have it down here. It's golf, not a game of perfect.
Okay. Right. So I think you hit on something really special there. And we just had phone calls with our incoming freshmen and their parents, and the parents of our returning players. And that was our main message, that just about everybody, ready, whether you're a Dubuque Fighting Saint or a Purple Eagle, you're probably strong enough to be successful and play at the level that you're at.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is to dominate that level and to be elite is all between your ears, right? And if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And so which wolf, right? Some people have heard that. Which wolf are you going to feed inside you?
Mm-hmm.
The wolf that believes or the wolf that doesn't? And I think golf is obviously a killer game at that, because you don't have any teammates to count on. Or tennis, right? The inner game of tennis is another great book for psychology. But that's our biggest focus right now through this time, is trying to help our guys, A, keep them positive, and B, hey, get into the mind gym, really work on your mind and grow in your mind instead of spending all these hours in the gym. The gym's certainly important, and that's where it's easy because we all can get in the gym or in normal times skate on the ice, but we all need to focus more on our mental prep and our internal confidence.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't play golf at a high level, but boy, oh boy, I don't follow anything that book says. The first drive I slice, it's just downhill from there mentally.
Yeah.
What I wanted to get into is I was looking at your career. I was reading back about it, and it's almost like playing Plinko across the United States map with how you started and where you travel. And I know that's the case for a lot of people in this profession. But as briefly as you can you detail at least some of how you started, where you got to now, without writing another book that people have to read?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the reference to Plinko, because that's a famous show, right? That takes me back to my youth, and I'm drawing a blank on what show it is.
Price is Right.
Price is Right. Yeah. So I can still remember that skinny little microphone that used to use. But anyway, it's been an amazing journey, and what I've learned is I've had the chance to work for some really great coaches and very different coaches along the way. So that's really helped me kind of form my own model. I borrow things that I like and try and drop things that I don't like. But I was very blessed. I've never had a real job, let's say, right? I've always been able to do what I love. And I started at Clarkson University working on my master's, and then got the chance to go to Hobart College, which is in the Finger Lakes in New York State. And then Clarkson was kind enough to have me back. In my time there, the second time back at Clarkson, the coach got fired. And so that was a great experience to go through as a young coach, to, in my first real, well, I guess second real job in coaching, to be fired along with him for something that I didn't have any control over. It wasn't wins or losses. It really opened my eyes to what this profession is all about. So then was blessed to go with Guy Godowski to Alaska Fairbanks. And if you haven't made that drive from Potsdam, New York to Alaska Fairbanks, I highly encourage that, and saw lots of wonderful things along the way. And then had the chance to drive out of Alaska to Princeton, New Jersey with Guy Godowski when he got the job there at Princeton. Back to my alma mater, that was great to me twice. And we won the championship there at Geneseo in 2006. And then to a wonderful university, the Ohio State University. Spent a lot of time there. And what I loved about Ohio State, similar to Iowa, where you guys are at, or Iowa State, it was big time athletics. Mm-hmm. So you got to see, when I was there, Jim Tressel, they won the national championship at football. The basketball team went to the Final Four. So you think hockey matters, and then you see what college basketball and college football are all about. and it's a whole different beast, right? So really learned a lot there at Ohio State, and worked with a guy there, JB Bittner, that was one of our assistants in Dubuque when I was there, and he's back at Ohio State now as an assistant. From Ohio State, got the chance to go work with Coach Owens, who just retired from Sioux Falls at Colorado College, and then worked with one of my best friends in the world, Norm Bazin, at UMass Lowell. And this one back here, we went to the Frozen Four together, and really learned a lot from him. Into Dubuque, right? The wonderful people of Dubuque, and the ownership group led by Brad Kwong, who I'm still friendly with and have learned so much from. And then get to be here at Niagara University. So, woo!
There we go. Yeah, I think you just wrote the first 3 chapters of the book, so that's good.
Right.
When you talk about all that experience you gained, and you said that helped build who you are as a coach, at what point did you feel like you started to establish your own style?
Yeah, I think that really started in Dubuque, being the head coach, right? Because especially as an assistant, I think a lot of people, probably Ollie would say this too, like you got all the answers, and you know exactly what to do in all the situations, and you make suggestions as an assistant coach. And then all of a sudden, when you're the head coach, you don't make suggestions anymore, you make decisions. And so when you have to start making decisions and your name's on the door, and you have to answer to Jim every day when he's down in the media about what's going on, that's when you really start to identify with who you're going to be, what you're going to be as a coach, and what it probably feels like to be coached by you.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jim probably really pressed you on a lot of hard-hitting issues, so that was really tough.
You know what, I miss him. I miss his great candor. He's obviously an elite writer, and still read the articles and follow along. And yeah, I was really impressed by him, and I think he's one of the best writers of all those places I mentioned that I've been around.
Yeah, Jim's great. He helps us a lot with the broadcast now, this show as well. You mentioned that you started developing your style in Dubuque, and your first year was 15-16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But that wasn't your first time as a head coach. Go back 10 years before, and you were a head coach at your alma mater, 2005, 2006. So 10 years in between. Was there much of a learning curve becoming a head coach again?
Yeah, there was. The Geneseo as a head coach, the reason I didn't add that as my first, when using my stuff, is I basically had taken everything that I had learned up to that point from Mark Morris and Guy Godowski, at that point, Mark Taylor, and basically kind of mixed them together and just did what I had seen them do. So it wasn't necessarily mine yet. It was, I guess, a version of theirs, if you will. And so in the 10 years between, I really grew as a person. Right. I became a Christian. I was married. I had kids, and those 3 events, marriage, children, and being a Christian, really changed me into the man that I am today. And more importantly, and for this call, the coach that I am today. And so those foundations, those 3 mega life transformations, really helped me even further develop how I wanted to coach and how I wanted people to feel about being coached by me.
The first season with Dubuque, and all you do is take the team to the Clark Cup final. What went right?
Yeah, there's a lot that went right. That was almost a Cinderella story. I mean, still, a lot of those guys. I just talked to Keegan Ford actually the other day. He reached out. It was great to hear his voice. The Smith twins, can think about so many people. Hunter Miska, right? Nate Soucis, so many wonderful, wonderful people on that team. And basically everything went right. I remember we at one point we were doing stats, and we won 9 games in overtime before Christmas. And I really think back to, without those 9 wins in overtime before Christmas, I don't know that where we would have gotten to where we got to. The other thing I remember is Brett Boeing scoring in Green Bay, in Dubuque against Green Bay, to send us to the finals. And the save that Hunter Miska made about 2 minutes before that was incredible. Certainly remember losing the first game in Green Bay in the first round, and then coming back and coming from 2-0 down. The Conehead line, right? That was a line that was super impressive at the time. Dallas Gerards, Colin Tyson, and Zach Solo at the time. So just a great blend of chemistry, great players, and guys that were very hopeful to see go on and make money in their career.
You mentioned some of those names: Miska, Soucis, Boeing, other names: Gordy Green, Gutman, Joey Keane. I mean, a lot of players that Soucy's recently signing a pro contract, same with Miska and a lot of players that have signed pro contracts the last couple years. As a coach, how early on in a season like that do you know, or do you feel like you might have a special group?
Yeah, that was my first year, so it was really the league's really challenging, and I personally didn't feel that till towards the end when it was you kind of kept looking at the standings, going, wow, in every 10 games we're 8-2 or 9-1 or 7-3. We had a tough stretch. We had lost 3 or 4 in a row right after Christmas, I believe, and we won a game in overtime. I believe it hit off Nate Soucy's butt and went in. Now he probably wouldn't agree with that assessment. That's how I saw it, and that got us out of that funk. And I think once we got out of that funk, that's when everything really seemed to click.
I want to get into the transition from year to year in the USHL. Is that the hardest part about coaching at that level, is how much turnover there is, and some of it you can't really predict until the season actually ends?
Yeah, that's I think that's a great point by you. And Callie Larson does an unbelievable job, right, in player development and drafting, and now the GM of the team. So kudos to him. But that was really something I wasn't necessarily ready for, especially coming from college, where you kind of know who's going to leave and you kind of know who's coming in. In Dubuque in the USHL, you don't necessarily know who's going to leave, and you don't necessarily know who's coming in. So it's a very odd situation that way. And then I think what I learned too, my second year, especially Austin Rushoff, we didn't plan on him, and God bless him, right? He's gone on and signed, but we didn't plan. We planned to have him back for a second year, but it's so fluid in the league that it really challenges you as a coach, because you can't just coach how you want to coach. You have to coach the team that you have, and that's one of the things that really I've learned, but has helped solidify me now in my beliefs as a coach, that, okay, if we do have a guy sign here at Niagara, let's be pumped for him, but know that you can onboard people and make them better and get them engaged in the system and how you want to play in the culture real fast.
Year two was, if you're going to say less successful, it was only mildly less successful for you in Dubuque. What was the transition like from year one to year two in terms of you personally, what you felt you learned from year one?
Yeah, well, year one, I just learned how important players are, and depth, right? I think as a coach, a lot of times we think, oh, it's this drill, or it's the way we want to run practice, or it's all about me, right, and how we do things. But what I learned is we had some great players on that team my first year, and players matter. And you can run all the great drills that you want or have all the great philosophies, but if your goalie doesn't stop the puck and your defenders can't defend and your forwards don't score, it doesn't really matter what great drills you have. So that was the thing that I learned, how important and how good those guys were our first year. The second year, I learned how you can we made some subtle little trades, right? Callie did a nice job adding some players, moving some players, and moving some pieces around. And where we got from at the start in Pittsburgh, that was exhibition at that time, to where I still feel, and I'm still mildly disappointed and pissed, I guess, that we lost in the Eastern Finals, that we could have, should have won that series. We were up 3-1 three times and didn't get it done. So something that still haunts me personally. But just players, how much the players matter, and how much the people and your coaching staff matters.
How early into that second off season for Dubuque did you get the sense that this might be the right time to move up and become a head coach at the NCAA level?
Yeah, it wasn't really something that as a family we were looking for or even thought about that was going to happen. It's always interesting to me, the jobs and how they all arise. It didn't. That wasn't our plan, right? A lot of people ask me about the plan and how do you do it and what's the ladder. And like you said, we just played Plinko across the country. I don't think coaching, there is no plan or there is no ladder. You kind of absorb the opportunities you have when they come along, and getting back to college and having the chance to coach college 3 hours from my mom now as a grandma with young kids, and direct flights to Minneapolis for my wife. I went to school just down the road in Geneseo, an hour and 15. It checked a lot of boxes for us. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a plan, but we're certainly grateful for the opportunity.
You mentioned earlier in the call, Oliver David What was it like working with Oliver with the Dubuque Fighting Saints?
Yeah, well, he just makes you smile, right? Like just the thought of his name, and I really enjoyed his mind. I was a defenseman, and really probably sometimes to a fault think about not giving up goals more than creating and scoring goals. And I always feel like OD was an artist, and he was all about creating offense and let's do this and let's do that. And I just loved his energy. Right, his energy was infectious. I thought he did a great job with the players and how he coached them and how he led them and how he taught them. And one thing that I've always said to OD, and I'm very grateful for this, uh, he didn't get the chance to be the head coach when I came in and stayed on staff. And not one time did he try and cut my legs out from under me as the head coach, or, whisper in the corner to the guys that, hey, whatever he says, that's not right. And I can't tell you how grateful and thankful I am that he really embraced me as a head coach, and in fact helped teach me a lot about the USHL.
I was looking at Niagara's lineup this year and obviously the last couple of years, a bunch of talent from the USHL, the NAHL, the AJHL. I'm assuming just because you're a college coach now and not directly involved in juniors, that you're basically still directly involved in juniors with all the players you recruit from there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you just hit our three priorities. Don't tell anybody, but those are our three priorities, that leagues that we want to be really good in, and just have so much respect for the USHL and what it is and the type of player that it spits out and creates. And a lot of people ask me about the USHL. I call it, it's kind of like light beer, right? It's just NHL light, because it's the same. It's hard. It's very humbling for a lot of these young guys coming in. They think they're going to be a rock star, and they get kicked in the kahunas right away, right? So it humbles you real fast. But if you can weather it and if you can thrive in it, man, you're going to be a great player on the other side of it.
When you first started at the NCAA level, the USHL was just starting as a tier 1 league. How much have you seen the USHL grow since the time you started in college hockey to where you are now?
Yeah, I just unfortunately did the math. It's 20 years now that I've been coaching, and to see the USHL and how it's grown and what it is. And I would be real impressed, or I guess real interested to go back and see all the people that the USHL has touched, whether it's players or coaches or guys like yourself, media. I mean, it's an unbelievable growth league. And I guess that's the part where I've seen it. I think at one time the USHL really was kind of hey, you go there and you don't really come out, right? Where now you go to the USHL and boom, you're like on a rocket ship to somewhere, let's not call it better, but let's call it maybe a higher level with another zero at the end of your paycheck.
Yeah. I guess, how have you seen that transition in the college game too? Because for a while, the college game was, if you go to play college hockey, NHL dreams aren't nearly as viable as they are now if you go play college hockey.
Yeah, well, the USHL and college hockey have a real good marriage together, just as a long-term development plan for a young man, right? Obviously, major juniors out there, and it can certainly kind of quick get you to the NHL. But if you're not going to be Connor McDavid, then why not get your education, and why not have a great insurance plan in case you get hurt or something doesn't work the way you want it to work? So I just see it as a great marriage. I think and Brad always used to talk about this, Brad Kwong, but I don't know that college hockey does a good enough job giving back to the USHL on how much the college hockey takes from the USHL. So I always tell them, well, I don't know how you can give back as a college, but I really see them as a symbiotic relationship.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today on the Fighting Saints Report podcast. I do have one more question before I let you go here, and that's when I was reading your bio, I saw the quote in there, "we over me," and I've heard that a lot from Oliver. I guess question number one is, where did that come from? And question number two is, why is that the quote that's in your bio? Why does that one stick out to you maybe above some others?
Yeah. So, I'd be interested to ask Oliver that question, but I would say that that quote comes from the book Legacy. That's where I remember seeing it for the first time, but I know that Oliver's big into that too. And I believe Oliver's the one that challenged me to read Legacy, about the All Blacks in New Zealand. And basically why I picked that quote is because my whole intention as a coach is to serve. And so I believe in serving the players and the people that I get to interact with every day. And if I can put the greater good over top of me, then we've done a good job, right? And that's what we're trying to instill in our players. And we're really trying to instill in our players too that they should do the same thing. We talk about all the time. Our mission statement here at Niagara is to get them to be grown to be great men, and at the appropriate time, great fathers, and at the appropriate time, great husbands. Again, appropriate time and all of those comments, right? So that's something that, again, as you go through life, if you learn to put others ahead of yourself, I think you're going to find a lot of joy. If you put yourself first, me first, then you probably feel joy for a minute, but something's always missing. So again, to me, it's back to that service point.
Well, Jason, again, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for joining us on the Fighting Saints podcast. Current head coach of the Niagara Purple Eagles, former Fighting Saints head coach. And if you have a college in the United States that you want to get some background on, probably ask Jason, because I'm sure he's been there at some point in time. Thanks so much.
Jack, thank you. God bless everybody in Dubuque. Thanks for considering me a Saint for life, and proud to wear that emblem. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care and take it easy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.